And I think it's noteworthy for a lot of people. Emphasis is placed on the spectacular beginning, the grand entrance. It must be a big bang, you know. But when I look at what Mike Murdock was sharing in the chapter, we would realize that he is saying that it really isn't about the spectacular. As a matter of fact, Mike Murdock was saying that when you do the simple, the spectacular occurs. And he also shared in that chapter that many will never become an uncommon achiever because they want their beginning to be spectacular. But then reminded us that small beginnings often have great endings. And that really caused me to realize, you know what, we need to make a shift because rapid fire is not for chapter 8, but instead, I love these conversations. We get to have all these lovely ebbs and flows
You
and
have a
twists
lot
and
of
turns,
fun.
right? Instead of rapid fire, actually, I wanted our wisdom for transformation to be story time. Because I think it's noteworthy to consider, okay, if we're talking about really embracing and appreciating our small beginnings, why not take a moment to share a story about an experience or a project, a business idea, whatever it may be, that would have started off as a small, a humble beginning, but yet worked for your good? And I'll jump off with a little story time, even as you guys think of your own. And as a matter of fact, when I thought about it, I ran out of the room and I went to my husband and I said, honey, I could tell a story about you tonight. I made sure I got permission first, but actually, his journey really stood out to me when I thought about this, because when I first met him, he actually wasn't doing what he's doing now. He had a skill, he had an ability, but he never thought about pushing it forward, and he did it only if somebody happened to ask him, hey, come and do this job for me, and he'll go do it. And I remember in the beginning when my husband started working on his own, because I said to him, I'm like, why do you work for people? I don't understand. Your level of skill is so good. Why don't you work for yourself? And within maybe about a year or two of me saying that, he did open his business. And you know what? His business opening was just that, one of small beginning. That when I met him, he thought that he couldn't do it because he didn't have the grand, spectacular big bang. But out of this small beginning, I remember looking and it's like, okay, you have a trowel, you have a shovel, you have a fork, you have a measuring tape. Use what you have. And that's what he did. He used what he had. He didn't have a vehicle to carry it around. He had to figure out how to transport himself. He didn't own all the tools at the time. He had to figure out how to maybe get it rented depending on what he needed. He didn't have the fancy packaging, so he used what he had when he had to go from job to job. Was it inconvenient? Of course. Was it difficult? Of course. Were there moments where on his way to building his dream, people looked down on him? Of course, they did. And when, he stood by the road to wait for the taxi or the car with his tools and his bag, and everybody passed with their vehicle and they literally looked down on him. Did he feel good? Of course not. But humble beginnings often lead to great achievement. And that's what it was. And when I looked at his journey and I looked at what Mike Murdock was saying about, embracing the small beginning, what he did, he learned. And he took it step by step, and doors opened for him, and he connected with the right people, and the jobs that he got moved from one level to another, where the quality of work that he's able to do, he really got to shine. And even now we make jokes about the type of things he used as tools back in the day. I can't even say tools. I have to say the things he used for tools because he's improvising, starting
Yeah.
small,
Yeah.
and now he owns them. He doesn't even have to rent them. He owns what he needs, and he's able to build and to grow and to get magnificent work done. And so, even as I think of an example of it doesn't have to be spectacular, there was nothing spectacular about when he started because all he had was a shovel, a trowel, the measuring tape, and one other item that's not coming to my mind right now. But it was like four basic items that he had. And from there, now here he is, owner of his own business. That when he goes out, he has his crew going with him and he's doing these magnificent pieces of work, all because he chose to pursue the dream, even though it wasn't perfect. He chose to accept even when he was challenged. He chose to accept, I have something to contribute. I have a unique view on how things can be done. I am hardworking. I can make this happen. I will remain humble, so I take directions. He embodied those things. And because he did, his very small beginning turned into him being able to have a life that growing up he never imagined he would be able to have. Is he done? Has he arrived? No. But he is on his way in achieving that uncommon dream because now he gets to look at himself, his life, his progress, and say, wow, look at what I have been able to do.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tell that story as my version of story time and how it can be so not spectacular, so simple, so humble, so challenging. But that doesn't mean to run away from the experience just
Yeah.
because it doesn't look perfect or it's not the fancy way that the competitors or the other service providers are doing it. It doesn't mean that you're any less than. Or even for me, when I started, and Rolly would know, when I started in education all those years ago, my first table was a table that I built with my own hands. Humble beginnings. I didn't even buy my first set of furniture. I built and borrowed because it really was a non-spectacular starting off. And I, even as I read this chapter, Roll, I remembered you. Because one of the first things you said to me when I met you all those years ago is, and it wasn't because I don't think I was communicating anything grand to you at the time, but you said to me, never despise humble beginnings. And I've always remembered that. And you always trumped the importance of valuing organic growth. There is value. I still remember all these years later. I remember that being that a part of our conversation. There is value in organic growth because you get to stumble, pick yourself back up, clean it up, and make it better. And I don't want to say anymore because I might take away from your story time and your lessons to share. But I remembered you when I was reading this. I really want to encourage people out there. Being an uncommon achiever doesn't have to mean perfection or grandeur, but it means tapping into what is on the inside and daring to live it out. And daring to put in the work to work through the vision that is on the inside, do the thing on the earth that only you can do because there is only one you. Yeah?